Hello, welcome to IFMA's Wednesday webinar series. We are so glad that you could join us for today's session. I'm Starlyn Chadwick with IFMA, tuning in from rainy Houston, Texas, and I am pleased to introduce today's session presented by JLL. A few housekeeping points before we get started. Please like and share on your social media platforms to ensure as many people as possible can benefit from hearing today's informative session. We'd also love to know where you're tuning in from. Please feel free to comment and share your location in the chat. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started. Today, our panelists will be discussing navigating the IWMS landscape, IWMS standing for Integrated Workplace Management Systems, regarding AI, disruption, and strategic alignment in the workplace. I'd like to go ahead and meet today's panelists, Michelle Buell and Kurt Calcroft, both joining us from JLL. Welcome. So glad to have you with us today. Yes. Howdy, howdy. Please go ahead and share a little bit about yourselves. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better, and then take it away with today's session.
Sure. Hi, I'm Michelle Buell, coming to you from Chicago. I'm excited to be with you here today. I'm in my 12th year at JLL as a solutions strategist, specializing in CRE technology and services.
Hi, my name is Kurt Calcroft, also with JLL. Recently returned back to JLL, but I've been working in IWMS for 15 years as a solution strategist in many different roles. Very happy to be here as well and present.
Let's get started.
Yeah, for today's agenda, we broke this out into 3 and really 4 because we really value the Q&A that may come towards the end. So start thinking of, or as we go through, think of questions that you may be able to ask. We're happy to answer. But 1, IWMS provider and categorization, right? IWMS decision-making. What do you think about? What do you look forward to? And then what is changing, right? Where does the latest buzzword fit in, right? AI is going to be our topic of interest.
So navigating the IWMS provider categories. We wanted to get started today with the CRE technology landscape, which continues to change and is becoming more and more complicated. As you can see, there are a number of options, each with their own benefits and drawbacks. It can get messy really quick. And without a sound strategy and a plan to navigate and leverage the right tools, your technology can create more issues than it solves. Today, we're going to be focusing on IWMS systems and platforms and gain insights into the 4 key categories of IWMS providers: point solutions, legacy IWMS, platforms, and disruptors. We're going to explore their strengths, challenges, strategic connections to better align your technology choices with your organization's needs and long-term goals. Well, let's take some time to get grounded in the CRE application terminology and highlight the difference between the types of applications out in the market, because sometimes these terms can be used interchangeably. The first 2 on this list, EAM and CMMS, these are probably the applications this audience is most familiar with. EAM, Enterprise Management System, is software designed to manage and optimize the life cycle of an asset. CMMS, Computerized Maintenance Management System, focuses around centralizing and optimizing maintenance operations and includes asset tracking. CAFM, Computer-Aided Facility Management Software, tracks and manages assets and facilities throughout their life cycle. IWMS, the reason we're here today, Integrated Workplace Management Systems, manages facility, real estate, and other workplace resources in a centralized and efficient manner. CPIP, Connected Portfolio Intelligence Platform. This is new terminology. It was first coined by Verdantix in May of 2022. This coincided with the advancements happening in the IWMS space. CPIP goes beyond traditional IWMS with real-time data, advanced analytics, and AI to optimize building performance and elevate the occupant experience. Major IWMS providers have been moving into this space and are occasionally starting to adopt this language as well. We wanted to make sure you were familiar with it. We put together a timeline to highlight the major providers within this space and when they came into the market. Starting in the very early 80s, before the advent of IWMS, software products that targeted facilities management were limited to point and CAFM solutions. But come 1982, we started to see our first IWMS systems emerge. The scope of these solutions was limited to helping facilities teams manage asset information and maintenance plans, often with a single site or across a small portfolio. The data set was centered around maintenance and facilities management data, such as asset and floor plans. Next generation IWMS emerged in the 2000s in response to buyer demand for a single real estate platform. These solutions aim to centralize portfolio level data to help users report across lease, space, projects, and energy. They started to include targeted integrations with BIM and other systems to bring in needed data, such as digital floor plans and lease information. They also offered dashboards and data visualizations and limited BI tools. The latest generation of IWMS, however, are much more sophisticated and are more user-centric. They incorporate traditional IWMS and workplace experience functionality.
So digging in a bit more, and I'll share some of my background. I've worked in the IWMS field since 2009 when I was hired as a corporate trainer, right? I quickly became an anomaly in the industry because I learned how to shift between, the various and the broad span of capabilities within the business, the cultural impact, and the various difficulties that arise in the different industries of these modules, right? I'm not saying this to exaggerate my own confidence. My wife tells me my head's big enough already. But my point is that since the origin, IWMS has brought together a broad grouping of this functionality, right? With diverse backgrounds. We just mentioned them before. We'll go through them again, right? Real estate, space management, maintenance management, project management, and environmental sustainability are the 5 core modules of IWMS and have been kind of since its beginning, with small variations on what is the focus, what's included, etc. But what was success for IWMS, right? It was defined early and it's continued to be pursued. We're going to talk about this for a bit and talk about how you get the most out of IWMS by defining the success, right? Make note of some of these points, right? Because we'll come back to them as we go through. Number 1, right? The reason for success of IWMS was common data structure for easier reportability, right? That's why we pulled this information together, as they were related, tied to our corporate real estate, and had information that could be useful. 2, pre-built functional areas, or probably better said, as a starting point for configurable areas of functionality, right? Might be a better way to say that. 3, embedded finances, workflow, interoperability, and emphasize, reduced time or cost to insight, right? That's why we had put those in place as we go through. Go ahead, next slide.
Sorry.
No worries.
There you go.
Okay, and you're saying to me, all great. I love the theory. Yeah, that's the right slide. I was pausing myself for a second. Great theory, but let's remember to be practical. And I agree. I love the practicality application of it. So what has happened since the beginning of IWMS? What theory has changed since it's been in place? We've ended up really, years afterwards with an array of solutions that companies and organizations will buy, shift to, adjust, replace, repurchase. You get this variety that we see out in the market, right? And that landscape is for many, many great practical reasons, right? So let's walk through as if I'm telling you something you don't already know. You probably know this, but it helps set the stage. So we're going to cover some of them. As Michelle mentioned earlier, right? We thought this came down to, okay, let's understand what is a point solution, right? An individual module or a solution that's defined without the ability to configure with a specific focus in mind, right? That's the definition of a point solution. I think that's very standard. The pro of a point solution, right? Speed to value, right? All of these have value that come into it, but the ability to get it up and running and deliver on the functionality that was predetermined is fast. Flexibility, right? Cons, cumulative cost implications. And yes, I picked that one because it was the most complicated and gave me a challenge to get it right. But reality, data silos is what stands out to me as the con of a point solution, right? We don't want data silos. IWMS, right? The first word in IWMS, pro, it's integrated, right? Meaning pre-built integrations. Doesn't mean they're perfect, right? Other pros are data accuracy, analytics, reporting, right? I'm going to keep hitting that reporting point. It is relevant. Con, adoption, right? Configuration. And yes, I've been in IWMS long enough that I've been programmatically taught to say configuration and not customization. I get it. On platforms, right? Platforms are fewer in number. They're starting to emerge, and even the IWMS tools are beginning to migrate their way into a platform to give us better value, better delivery, better consistency across the board, right? These are less known amidst the maturing market. So we want to highlight some of those, but the value, extensibility, right? Analytics, consolidated licensing. I'm going to emphasize on, right? That's the value of a platform that provides value to the customers, right? Consolidated licensing. I get more for what I pay for. Cons, complexity, right? Learning curve. So go ahead and jump onto the next slide. So let's talk about cost. So I've got the value, the pros, the cons. Now let's talk about the why, right? And the cost that goes with it. So first, cost of ownership does go up when I move from left to right. That's true, right? But the potential for savings, highlighted very lightly in red on the dollar signs that you guys can look and see there, also increases in a similar manner, right? I also want to call out that an IWMS solution deployed as a single module lands in the category here as point solution, right? Let's call that out. But let's talk about the business reasons why these decisions are being made of going with a point solution or other, right? Point solutions are useful. Yes, that's what I'm saying. Point solutions are useful when an organization is coin operated, meaning I give you this input and I expect this as an output. The details in the middle are managed, operated, reviewed, reported, and endured by the resources inside of that system, right? In this scenario, the output is isolated and data consolidation is completed elsewhere, right? Not my concern, not my worry. More importantly, the business process has an unchangeable culture that would allow or that would limit consolidation of processes, and it would allow you to stay in a fixed solution with minimal configuration options, right? Hence, silo. Silo works in those scenarios. If that's the culture of your operations, that makes sense to continue on that path, right? IWMS and platform solutions, I'm going to kind of group the two together, bring value to customers through a consolidated operational process and a consolidated data administration, right? Additional savings is within increased interoperability, right? Between the tools, I've got consistency as my users navigate, learn, upskill, etc. Right? But remember, with higher cost comes the availability to purchase higher levels of security, hosting, administration and skills, etc., that help drive some of that cost saving potential that's being flagged here, right? IWMS needs to be deployed by organizations with cross-functional collaboration. The how I do this impacts how you do that, right? That's the value. That's the reason for the cost and the driver that are between the two. Now, I probably lost half of you, or at least some of you zoned out. So let's stop talking about cost and let's switch to the next slide. Disruptors. That's why you came here, right? You didn't want to hear me talk about cost or the value that are there. But disruptors, in my mind, and I've got my opinion here, disruptors are fun. I say that entirely because I love innovation. That's one of the core values that I have. And disruptors are called disruptors because they're doing something new in a significant way, right? It's not just doing something new or doing something different or doing the same thing in a different way. They're doing something new in a significant way, right? Therefore, it's worth a note. So Microsoft Places and ServiceNow have emerged as new players in the landscape of IWMS. Do they match all of the capabilities? No. Are they working towards it? Yes, right? Roadmap is in the midst of what's there. I was hearing some feedback. Do you hear that too, Michelle? We'll keep going. Okay. New sometimes triggers people's feelings of, change. Change is not what everyone likes. But in this case, people will appreciate that these solutions are created with the user, the tenant, the occupier, depending on where you sit in this overall scenario. But it has them in mind when relationship to the facility that it operates in, right? Let me highlight a point here that I think you should write down as a takeaway. Microsoft Places and ServiceNow are approaching IWMS and corporate real estate technologies with the workplace experience in mind. No, I'm not saying that the existing IWMS tools are not trying to. I'm not forgetting that they're trying to improve their own experience in a similar way, right? But both of these tools have some game-changing capabilities we don't have time to explore today, but are worth the research, right? Let me say it again. Microsoft Places and ServiceNow are approaching IWMS and corporate real estate technology with the workplace experience in mind. Next slide.
So now we're going to go into strategic decision making. We wanted to explore the different technology buying models that are out there. CRE tech stacks can be procured and managed in a variety of different ways. We went through all the types of products that are out there. We have clients that operate across the 4 models shown here. Whether you're leveraging an entire technology stack provided directly by a single CRE technology partner like JLL, or you've purchased all point solutions on your own, an IWMS, or have a mix of multiple partners, providers, and self-procured technology, successful outcomes can be driven and processes simplified when you have an aligned strategy, program, and governance practice. You'll notice we highlighted the top in red, strategy, program, and governance layer. Many organizations we work with have a gap here and often make purchases in silos without considering the entire tech landscape. When you combine strategic planning along with a complete operating and governance model like you see here, you will ensure your CRE tech projects are implemented, measured, enhanced, and supported. This will allow you to navigate the complex landscape that will result in implementing the most suitable solutions for your organizations. So to make informed IWMS purchasing decisions, you should consider your legacy investments, vendor longevity, and market disruptions. You also have to consider factors such as integration needs with systems such as your ERP system for financial data and transactions, HR, people and organizational information, IoT devices, BMS, and data platforms. Ultimately, the goal is to align business capabilities needed with IWMS functionality to drive desired business outcomes. We've broken down all the areas each organization should consider when investing in an IWMS. As mentioned, start with your strategy. Define your business drivers and get alignment. Understand your infrastructure or identify who within your organization can help you in this space. What type of licenses are you going to buy? Hosted, SaaS, non-SaaS, on-prem, and once again, know your integration needs. Make sure to outline global and regional nuances. Understand regulations, currency requirements, and language needs, to name a few, and understand compliance needs. Outline scope, effort, and resources needed to implement your IWMS, and ensure you have the right maintenance and support program to protect your investment. Also, most importantly, make sure the functionality enables your business user to incorporate change management to drive adoption. This is really important, especially if you're looking to increase your productivity or you're migrating from existing systems. Getting your team up and running on a new platform so you can sunset your old technology is critical to controlling your costs.
Yeah, I love that set of slides, talking and giving visibility into the overall scope of things. So not taking away, but continuing on that same thread of conversation, right? This diagram kind of helps think of the end in mind as I start those initial expectations, right? I really want to depict here that you must provide budget for the upkeep of the system, right? I find it oftenly identified that the sustainment of a system was forgotten in the midst of the rollout, right? Technology solutions are not plug and play, right? There is a form of deterioration, and I'm going to use that term because of the audience that we have here, right? You're familiar with facilities, and deterioration of facilities is the real word, but there is a form of deterioration that creates this incremental gap based on software depreciation and value, et cetera. So let's do a little bit of storytelling for a second, right? You and your company have begun outlining your initial expectations. You have questions like, who has done this before, and can I just take their requirements, right? That's where I would be. You have a vision, right? Similar to, I can't wait to progress from where I am to where we are going. Right. And then you comment to your colleague on how you're not going to make the same mistakes as last time, and you're going to stick to out of the box, right? Great vision. Love it. Right. So we've set the stage of where we're at. We're going to roll forward through a few different stages here. We're going to roll forward through procurement, right? And the excitement of a well-delivered demonstration with a presenter who seemed to have a great voice and understand both your business and your current issues, right? We're going to roll through implementation all the way into year one, right? Here you reflect back to the overall journey, the success of completion, the hope for the future, as well as the struggles that stand out that help accent the journey that you took along the way, right? The struggles make it memorable, my opinion. Here's the realization that by yourself or between you and a slim crew, and this is where I found too many organizations, between you and a slim crew, you don't have the capacity to run solution administration, to run configurations and updates, to run security checks, right, to vulnerability monitoring, et cetera. Nor do you have the capacity to monitor the ticket queue to help users with training problems, right? It's then you recall saying no to the managed services and realize why it was recommended in the first place, right? Just a quick recap to remember, we've been through those roads. Let's make sure that we keep them in mind as we continue onward. Like I said, unfortunately, I've spent a few years with a few different groups of great and talented individuals where this ended up as their reality, right? I hope that doesn't happen to others, but it was hard to watch the slow widening of this gap depicted in the visualization here, right? Some unfortunately get to a point where they do begin to substitute with more headcount, or they end up going out to RFP trying to fill that gap. But in doing so, we can state with certainty that they end up spending more dollars to fix their scenario than they would have spent on managed services up front, right? Just like facilities, it does more to it cost more to catch up than it would have cost to lead with sustainment in mind, right? I'll also call out that in this moment, I've watched many companies end up throwing out one of their solutions to implement another with exactly the same functionality, capabilities, maybe slightly different, maybe something new, but I've been unable to achieve new capabilities because of past dead weight that was put in place, right? They have capabilities, interoperability, and workflow in each of the systems, right? Let's not necessarily go down that road if it's not necessary or if I've gone too far. With software, remember about indirect and ongoing costs when you make your initial expectations, right? When I'm making my initial decision, things like continual updates, product revisions, and the inevitable event of unnegotiable change in internal process for the sake of growth, right? These can all end up leaving some technical debt where what we created doesn't match what we need. To my point, when considering your purchase, your software, your system integrator, don't forget about your sustainment plan. And no, software support is not enough. You have a solution, not just software, and you have enhancements to that software. Software support will not give you the solution support that you and your users want and need, right? You must invest in your solution, and it looks like ongoing and agile in nature. Next slide. Now, speaking of forgotten costs, I don't want to just say it out loud and leave you hanging, But let's pull some of the options that are up. No, this is not an absolute list, but it has placeholders similar to Michelle's slide earlier that gives you an idea of what to think about, what to focus on. I'm going to highlight with the really cool icon up in the top right, those little glasses, right? The perspective changes based on SaaS versus non-SaaS, right? This isn't perfect, but it makes sure that it highlights, build your own map, build your own identifier, and identify more items in that list than I've got here. I challenge you to do so, right? Your implementation, your internal teams, and your procurement will determine where each category of costs lands, right? So point to add the list, add more to it, and place the cost in one of the 4 categories. You'll see the categories as direct and upfront, direct and post-implementation, indirect and upfront, indirect and post-implementation, right? So let's do a few highlights of examples, because this is what happens at the end if I haven't thought of it ahead of time. For example, right, ongoing training investment, right? I wish I had a poll right now, but we didn't set one up. I didn't put in the effort. That's on me, really. But I already know the answer to this, which is why. But how many of you have rolled out a product and never updated the training material? Yeah, I'm one of them, right? My hand's raised as well. How many of you know who owns your InfoSec review each year, every other year, right? HR policy mandates and controls. Who owns that? Who allocates time to that, right? What happens if that organization goes away, stops supporting you, right? Who picks up the slack? Those are costs that happen in an indirect manner, whether I'm paying attention to them or not. I need to make sure I understand those processes. Another one that's similar and is a personal favorite of mine, because it approaches the how do I do this right? But which of you have documented the justification and intent of your customization? Let's see, wow, see, that wasn't so hard to say. I can actually say customization, not just configuration. But have you documented the justification and intent of your customization, right? If you don't know why you changed something when you run an upgrade, how streamlined can that process be? I can tell you it's not, right? Reduce your upgrade cost by documenting, by configuring and customizing correctly. Next slide.
So now we're going to dive into market evolution and AI integration. We're going to start with grounding ourselves in the AI technology available to CRE teams. For CRE, there are 2 primary categories of AI tools being used today. Enterprise-level AI tools. This includes ChatGPT style, large language model tools, AI plugins, AI co-pilots for communications. These use cases are the use cases that the IT organization is responsible for as part of the overall AI business strategy. The other is CRE-specific AI solutions. These are the use cases dedicated to CRE activities, and it includes the IWMS applications. Products ranging from capital project planning to portfolio management, workplace experience, day-to-day building operations, and energy and utility management. These are areas where CRE function is best positioned to explore AI. CRE AI must integrate seamlessly with existing systems. The best AI solutions are designed in ways that prioritize user friendliness and easy onboarding. If it doesn't, employees will not leverage it. In summary, the goal is to empower and enable CRE professionals.
Thank you, Michelle. AI, what a great topic, right? I love this topic. And it's not just because, well, it is because innovation is one of my core values. AI is at the heart of it, right? As depicted there in that diagram, like, let's talk about AI knowledge, right? And I'm going to use the terminology of knowledge because we can better relate to knowledge of AI. And I specifically mean LLM, right? Large language model for AI when I'm talking about knowledge. But in this case, the large language model has a knowledge which is based on the training it was provided, right? My AI, my large language model, is only as smart as the training that was provided. Just like employees I hire have the knowledge based on their training and their background, right? Training, we can relate with the knowledge concept on, I only know what I have in front of me or what I have provided, right? I can leverage an AI model with general knowledge, and we've got a lot of those, right? ChatGPT, Grok, they're out there in the tool. They have a general knowledge, and I can ask really well a broad range of questions, such as, What's the optimal time to set an alarm in the morning? Right? But this point isn't new, and I'm going to keep on, right? You guys get that point, I hope. Beyond knowledge, let's take it to the next step. There are AI models that have analysis capabilities, right? Such as one that focuses on providing logical explanations on a process. I can ask it to walk me through in a logical explanation, right? Or to run a calculations. But I'm sure similarly, you guys have all heard some AI models are not great for computational questions, right? I have to ask the right model the right question. Is something that's relevant. Otherwise, I get a non-answer, we'll call it, right? But a not useful answer. In a similar way, I've got the diagram here. We can contrast AI models that are from general or analysis based from those that are industry specific, real estate or enterprise knowledge, right? And I hope you are one of the resources that already knows this, because it means you, like me, have already been out there trying to use AI to improve your daily life. You're trying to ask it questions and see what it understands, but you quickly learn asking a real estate related question to a general knowledge AI doesn't necessarily give me the answer that I'm looking for, or based on my own experience, I know that it should actually be, right? My point is similar to I already hit that point. So, but we have to properly train the AI models to be able to answer industry specific questions based on the right context, right? That's the trick. It's the alignment. It's the connecting of the dots with sufficient information. So corporate real estate needs corporate real estate related knowledge to push into those models to make it useful, right? And these models need a lot of data to be trained, right? A lot of focused training to be effective, right? This means that I need a lot of enterprise knowledge to produce an enterprise model, right? And sometimes the amount of knowledge that's available is limited to me, right? Me and my organization, or where I'm currently at, I don't have access to that large span of enterprise knowledge. But it's this reason, and we're going to talk about this in just a few minutes, but it's this reason that you're going to see vendors like JLL offering business context and data offerings inside of AI, like JLL Falcon. It's also why you're going to see, and we'll soon talk about, how IWMS providers are trying to incorporate these technologies, right? But first, this is large language model knowledge and how I can leverage. Let's switch to the next slide. Let's talk about agentic AI, right? This is the next level, slightly different, similar in nature, right? But just as important as industry-focused LLM models is companies' use and focus on agentic AI, right? What I mean is an autonomous system that helps humans by performing repeatable tasks in the digital world, replicating what may need to happen in the physical world, right? It's going to help me in that process. Humans set the goal, and the AI model helps them complete it, right? I'm not shifting, I'm not sending off goals. The agentic AI is helping me in the process, right? AI is to help me tactically or strategically achieve or streamline those goals, value, outcomes, whatever you want to call it. Agentic AI will help me with more than knowledge, right? It helps me on those other two fronts. So notice here, right? I've talked out about how the different elements are there, but there's the term that I have to chuckle at, right? But human in the loop is what they're calling this. And sorry, I find it funny. No one consulted me when they were defining this, but to me, the loop is because of humans, right? Humans have the loop. They are the loop. So it's how do I incorporate or connect with an agentic AI to help complete the loop, right? Think of this in terms as how do I include an agentic AI in the loop I'm already achieving, and what feels like it would benefit from automation meets intelligent processing, right? We've had automation for a long time, for a while now, I guess I should say. Automation is just scripted, right? I can just send it, it's done. So automation is part of that, but automation meets intelligent processing of information, meaning I can make executive decisions based on the gist of what's said, or I can conglomerate information and take action upon it, right? That's agentic AI. Let's play through some examples of my scenarios here, right? Let's all pretend we know or understand or work with a space manager. Many of you are there, right? I've been there myself. Knowledge, right? I work at a university. Our university needs to research insight into the potential cost savings of incorporating a shared desk policy. Purely hypothetical here, guys. General knowledge question, right? Back to the slide before, right? If I want general knowledge, right? Yesterday, I would go Google this, right? Today, I can ask my industry-related AI knowledge counterpart for some information. So one, I go do that. I complete that task. Of course, I get positive feedback because every AI agent out there is programmed to be an optimist at heart. But I do more research, right? I say, hey, look, I need to fact check this. I need to make sure that I've got accurate information. Point me to the research paper so that I'm informed as an individual, not just trusting the AI that I'm working with, right? But I confirm there's multiple studies at 3 different universities that confirm that shared student employee desks work if I have sufficient technology options to enable their laptop of choice to connect to the available equipment, right? It works if they can pick their own laptop and connect to the equipment that's available to them. And again, purely hypothetical here. So going from knowledge, I've gathered information. It sounds like it matches. I've got studies that show it, but now I've got to do something. So what's the best way to execute this kind of project? This is the problems that was in the midst of IWMS before and always has been. But AI, how is it going to help us, right? Sure, there's still a research element to the tactical, now what do I do, right? But now I have a group move, right? I have a project and it's combined with small magnitude renovation project. It's combined with IT cases to improve the interoperability of the equipment, right? Those are things where AI can help, right? So first, I leverage AI and I start asking intelligent questions. We're going to show where we get to this point here in a second, but where are my hubs of student employees currently located, right? Is there a central place of consolidation? Or really more applicable, where are their managers, right? We've got to have and can't pull them so far away from their managers that they lose productivity, right? Not saying they can't be productive. They're more than capable. What we want, that oversight and capability and connection that happens between, resources, right? That's one. 2, I've got a policy change agent, right? Now I've got policy change. There's an agent that's been defined that helps walk me through who's included, what resources need notified, right? How do I notify them correctly? What are the deadlines that go with policy changes? How long do I have to wait for compliance, for all the rest of those? Engaging a policy agent in the midst of a change can help me in that overall process as it sets the stage, reminds me as a user what I need, etc. Right? Or let's say I'm a renovation project manager. I've got a lot of project managers out there as well. Right? In what ways can agentic AI follow up on updates and assigned tasks? Internal resources, external resources. How much of your day do you spend kind of following up on who needs to complete what task, et cetera? Right? In a strategic standpoint, and we're going to talk about how here in a second, I've got reporting agents, right? Where is my lowest utilization rate across the campus, right? These are strategic agentic AI capabilities where I start asking questions and get useful information as data changes, as data trends, as I find out more information on an ongoing basis, right? Where's my highest per resource square foot cost by department? Anyway, I think you get the idea, or at least I hope so. But let's talk about some IWMS specific use cases. Next slide, Michelle.
Yeah, so what is the role of AI in IWMS space? We break this down into 3 primary areas: simplifying the complex, predicting risks and opportunities, and reducing resource consumption. Kirk and I are going to lay out a few examples on how the IWMS vendors are building AI into their solutions. In simplifying the complex, Aptura offers an intelligent booking feature that leverages AI and machine learning to automatically book spaces for users based on user preferences, colleague locations, required amenities, and the type of work. For example, this solves the problem or the action you have is, I'm going into the office on Tuesday and I want to sit by the rest of my team or sit by my boss. ServiceNow Workplace Concierge and Tririga Assistant also have this capability. And this functionality within IWMS Places is one of its primary use cases, with the added benefit of being integrated with Microsoft Teams and Outlook.
Similar, simplifying the complex, right? PlanOn is currently piloting a Gen AI chatbot that enables users to access key information across various modules. Managers can ask questions, for example, find all of the work orders related to too hot or too cold and have it pull back the information that's related, right? Or questions like, can you provide me with an end of life related submission on this asset, right? Employees themselves also use the assistant to easily submit work orders, such as I'm too hot, right? Or I just noticed my chair's broken. Those kinds of things will trigger and provide action inside of PlanOn.
Next, predict risks and opportunities. The goal is for facilities teams and business leaders to make informed decisions about floor plans, maintenance schedules, real estate spending based on data analyzed within the systems. For example, Johnson Controls FM Systems has FMS Insights, which has a utilization narrative dashboard, which uses AI to summarize utilization trends for users looking to get quick understanding of the data. It also includes a Simply Ask feature that allows users to query the data, such as asking for daily average utilization by building for a specific time period and producing different types of charts showing such data.
For instance, as well, around predictive risks and opportunities, IBM is planning to introduce an AI-driven real estate optimization tool, which brings together various sources of data, including occupancy data from sensors, Wi-Fi networks. It brings in climate risk data, energy data, and it leverages AI to recommend improvement opportunities across the portfolio. Right? IBM currently also uses AI to analyze historical data and equipment performance to predict potential issues and schedule preventive maintenance, minimizing downtime and costs.
Last category, reduce resource consumption. Give an example with Tango, has a floor plan scenario modeling tool. It uses machine learning and AI analytics to run multiple floor plan scenarios, displaying the top 2 suggestions based on multiple real estate inputs, such as minimizing your square footage or reducing costs. It can provide headcount forecasts and collaboration requirements from different teams. This embedded modeling reduces the time for insight for the space planning teams.
Yeah. Additionally, ServiceNow WSD is heavily leveraging artificial intelligence, AI, right? Particularly generative AI to transform the workplace experience, right? What I mentioned before, and optimize facility management. They have an automated content curation, right? Generative AI assists in creating content like a knowledge base article, automatically generating responses to common inquiries, reducing manual effort and improving efficiency and cost. ServiceNow is leveraging natural language understanding. Generative AI empowers those virtual agents and chatbots within WSD to understand and respond to user requests in natural language, facilitating seamless interactions.
We want to leave you with a note here that says we want you to ingrain it in your brains here. There is no AI strategy without a data strategy.
Yeah, if they didn't write that down, they should. We'll just... Okay, I want you to focus on, we're starting to run short on time. I want to get some questions. It sounds like we've got a few that are in the queue. But focus here on the left-hand side, predetermined questions, right? Business intelligence for predetermined questions are great until I need to change my question, right? That's the hardship. We've all been there. We've all gone through it. This is why an AI strategy is useless without a data strategy, because I can't get to a new question without understanding where the data is in the context behind it, right? Remember, data strategy is not so much about classification of requests or classifications of assets. Those things do change, right? That's okay. Data strategy is the where do I keep the certain types of data, and can my AI understand the intent of the industry, the intent of the data, well enough to connect a question from a user to the right tables of information, right? That's how I help proceed down this line. As an example, yesterday, we talked about automating calculations of inventory reorder points. Great conversation, great focus. How do I improve my what I have on my shelf? When do I reorder? How far in advance do I? All of the supply chain and logistics that come into it are relevant. Today, our question changed, right? We're asking which inventory items are impacted from the changing tariffs, right? If it's not already apparent in which ones are because costs have gone up. But I need to find that out. I need to understand those questions will change daily. I can't predict what tomorrow's question is, but we need the ability for our strategy to be dynamic, right? This is where IWMS is moving to in relation to AI. Next slide. I'm going to highlight here. Remember, our point is that AI is an enabler. It is not an individual solution, right? It must be appropriately connected to the processes you already have to streamline value. Occasionally, it does automate value, but it should always enable the individual who partners and has responsibility for the given area, right? My final thoughts. And let's step back to the original intent of IWMS, specifically reporting and total time or cost to insight still focuses nowadays, right? Those were the goals. Collectively, we've moved in that direction over the years and through many iterations. We're still pushing in that direction. Some of us felt lost along the way with big data, right? We're getting wowed by the innovation of AI, but the focus should rely on getting useful information out of the system and enabling the users to do their work, and with the new disruptors, enabling the occupiers of the spaces that it supports in a collaborative and consolidated and reportable way, right? So that as a business, right, we drive value to our customers. All of our businesses, ours included, drives value to our customers. And I do hope that, some of the points we made today will give you things to think about as you continue in your journey. Next slide.
Great. So in closing, why are Kirk and I here today? JLL is uniquely qualified to be talking to you today about IWMS. JLL advises, resells, implements, and supports clients with their IWMS investments. We also wanted to leave you with this. Fordantex has recognized JLL as a leader in the IWMS CRE technology system integrator space. We have over 3,000 employees focused on CRE data and technology and have completed over 5,000 implementations, expansions, and upgrade projects. Now let's get to the Q&A. I see one question here in the chat. And it says, how can we ensure that an intelligent agent adheres to the ethical and regulatory policies? Can limits be placed on its actions?
So it's a great question, right? And I'm going to apologize because I don't have the perfect answer. This is complex in nature, but it is the right question if we're talking about AI that says in the use of AI, we need to think about the ethical and the regulatory compliance. Just like when we're using SaaS, we're thinking about, personal information, GDPR, et cetera. So can limits be placed on actions? Yes, right? But it's part of the policy of regulating the AI that I'm engaging. Many tools that are out there says, here's the model that I'm using it. Here's the intent I'm using it for. Here's the resources that are responsible for it and the questions and the intent that go behind it. But again, why I point out, right, AI is an enabler with regulations put in place. The person who's utilizing that tool should still be responsible for the output and the outcome. Hopefully that answers your question, Mohammed.
Do you have another question in the chat at all?
So looking through a few, looks like there's a few of them that are out there. Let me see if I can read one and get one that's relevant, right?
Check, I don't know if you're going to be putting those on the screen for us at all. So what are the biggest roadblocks when rolling out IWMS? I can lay out a few here that I think we see. One, we talked about data a little earlier, data quality and integration issues. Making sure your data is clean and ready for input into a system is going to be critical. Also, change management activities, making sure you have a proper change management and communication plan as you're rolling out these systems. Another is making sure you assign resources. These folks can't be doing this implementation off the side of their desk. They have to be sort of dedicated to getting this up and running and make sure you have all the business requirements aligned so that you can configure the system properly. Understanding the technical complexities and making sure you have those resources available to you to help navigate the technology. And then I would just also make sure you have organizational alignment when you're dealing with the IWMS rollout, making sure all the stakeholders are aligned in moving forward with the application and represented within the IWMS implementation.
Great one. I see a few others. There's one from, and I'm going to butcher names if I try. So, have there been any proven KPIs or case studies showing measurable ROI after transitioning to AI-driven IWMS platforms? Right? How can organizations quantify this improvement? I've seen many different, ROIs that are out there that help articulate that, but quantifying it really is the question, right? I can quantify process automation, right? I can quantify and even capture, productivity improvements, right? From usability. We've been doing that for a while, right? Each one comes with kind of its own category. Many of the software, the IWMS providers, and even JLL can help engage you to help prove to your leadership, the quantity of value that you're going to get into one of those. But I think it's going to take more time than I have here to provide to you. But it is a great question. And
yeah, I think
we're asking. Go ahead.
One of the examples I can think of right away in that quantitative element was like lease abstraction. I know there's a lot of work being done in there, and that's really reducing the time to get leases within these systems. That's just one example.
A great example. That's exactly right. So I've got another question. What about AI hallucinations? And it's a great question. Again, we have them. They're part of the overall equation. It's going to circle back to, what do we do about it? Where does the responsibility land? Can we teach an AI to make decisions on our behalf that we don't have to worry about? No, that's the wrong point, right? AI has the potential of leveraging the wrong knowledge. Same way that my employees do. I've grabbed a resource. If their culture, their background, their knowledge was to do it in this process that's different than the new organization that they're in, we're going to end up with a misalignment of capability. So we identify it, we understand them, and we look to make sure that the way our models are trained are focused on the outcome that's provided, right? We can improve upon that overall. But I don't think we'll ever remove entirely AI hallucinations. We'll improve upon what are our outcomes and make sure that the user who's using the AI for information, right, is responsible for the outcome. Looks like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think it comes down to that data model again, like JLL itself uses its own JLL GPT, and we're feeding it the data and the corporate real estate information to reduce the level of hallucinations. Let's see. How do we ensure customer satisfaction when many people are extremely frustrated with AI loops, such as Google customer services?
That sounds like it's not frustrated with the AI model. Maybe it's about the outcome or the output that's happening into it. But you're talking about the support of the provider that goes into it. I don't think we can answer that question necessarily here, right? It's learning, understand the model, understanding the provider, the same way you would a systems integrator, right? IWMS term that we do know, right? Do your due diligence, identify those overall capabilities, and make sure you understand. Frustration comes when there's a misalignment between expectation and outcome. That's what we want to try to avoid, understand, and articulate better as we move forward. So, but good question, Dominic.
I think we have another one here on how should IWMS vendors approach the integration of third-party AI tools versus developing say that 10 times, proprietary capabilities, considering factors like data security, system performance, and long-term support? That's a loaded question.
It is. You want to take it first? You want me to jump in?
No, go ahead, jump in, and I have some thoughts.
So it's a great point, right? And I'm going to actually put 3 different categories of options that are in there, PJ. So it's a good point. Is the AI tool built in or bolt on to the IWMS product? It's a good question, right? How well is it integrated into the overall system? Many of the IWMS tools that are taking or approaching this overall conversation end up with a kind of third-party AI tool that's tailored on grabbing information out of it. So that's part of it. You add in another one. The third one, the final one, is personal development, right? Some of us in our organizations have IT experts who are capable of developing and building out tools that can help us address some of those equations. The answer, you got to play it, case by case. It's an emerging field. It's something that's new. Sometimes your local resources will better understand your specific use cases to deliver something better and faster than one of the IWMS providers can bring to you. But now I've got to think of the upkeep, right? That's the catch, right? Do I upkeep it? Do they upkeep it? It's indirect cost versus direct cost, right? Where does that land? How do I decide? But you nailed, most of those kind of points overall, and just what are the considering factors, data security, system performance, long-term support. On system performance, it has to do with where is the end result data stored? What's the database type? And can it handles that scalability of those kinds of transactions? That's the question on the performance. Go ahead, Michelle.
Yeah, and I like the idea. I don't think it has to be either or, but I do like your point, Kirk, around, if you build it, you have to support it. So, what's innately built into the tool to help facilitate that need for you on your behalf versus maintaining it separately as an organization and keeping it updated, enhanced, and renewed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. This one's a loaded one.
These,
How do we see AI improving the economy?
And you get all the good questions, because these
Yes.
are and triggering, and let's not assume, right? I don't have the answers or the perfect answers. Right? How do I? You're asking for an opinion. I'm going to give an opinion.
When it removes human input for jobs. Did you see this one, Kirk?
Yeah. So how do you see AI improving the economy when it removes human input and jobs? It's again, I'm going to go back to the enabling point that I made earlier, Dominic. There's a lot of nuances to this. And what I'm going to emphasize is economy grows based on our ability to produce. If an individual has a higher capacity because it's leveraging AI to do more, that's increasing it. I don't see it removing the need for intelligence, right? Human in the loop. The agentic AI points that I made seem essential inside of the economy. Are there places where that may not be absolutely the case? Perhaps, right? I don't know where they're at, but I see AI as an enabler that's helping people do more in the midst of already struggling with what they're trying to achieve.
Right. It's also getting rid of sort of more the mundane tasks and leverages that employee to maybe work on something a little more strategic and give them more growth in their positions. That's what we're finding, at least at JLL, with our embracing of AI. And we've been, adopting this for quite a bit of time, and that's not impacting the types of resources we need to hire and bring into our organization. I think we're at time here, and I actually don't see any additional questions in the chat. So thank you all.
I'm seeing one more.
Did you see one more? I'm sorry, missed it.
Follow-up question, perhaps. I have another question, please, with AI integration. We'll make it short, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay.
With AI integration into IWMS, how can organizations mitigate the risks related to data privacy, cybersecurity, especially when outsourcing to third-party cloud-based providers? So those kinds of elements going to cloud-based providers has elements, right? Security still follows its same process, right? It is managing AI, and the question becomes, IWMS has answers for how they're handling data privacy, cybersecurity, outsourcing in the midst of it, right? IWMS has been addressing that. I'm happy to talk with you if you want to reach out directly and we can dig deeper into the point. The question here that I hear is how AI changes that. And the answer is it doesn't, right? AI still needs to follow similar protocol in gathering, capturing, regurgitating, storing information. And by all means, it's not sending that information back. If I've got a corporate engaged type set of information that I'm leveraging AI, right? It's not an open model that's putting all that information back into the learning model of that overall instance. We need to be able to control it, put it into our system and use it appropriately. So I don't know if that helps, but we'll answer that last question and encourage others to reach out if you've got follow-on questions. I think there's a link that's coming.
Thanks everybody for their time today.
Thank you all. Enjoy.